Hey y'all, I'm Carrie,
I'm Momo.
and this is Monstrous. This episode contains topics and language that may not be suitable for all listeners, and topics that may be triggering to some. Listener discretion is advised. I'll do that. All right, welcome back. We are glad you're back for our Thanksgiving week episode. Can you
It's
believe-
hard to believe it's Thanksgiving
I
already.
know, that's what I was just getting ready to say. God,
I'm not even done Christmas shopping yet.
we're pretty much done.
Well, I gotta wait till next payday.
Yeah, we're pretty much done. We only have a few things left to get. Oh, we got pretty much everything.
I think all I've got left is the grandkids.
What's
The
today?
great grandkids.
What's the date that we're
22nd.
so in a month and like 3 days. Oh, it'll be 12.
Stop it. Well, and then 2 months after that, Zymir will be 5.
Mm-hmm. 3 days after Logan's birthday, Julian will be 5.
Carly Elizabeth will be 18.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
My babies are growing up.
Does not seem possible.
No, I got a new baby coming.
Yeah. Okay, anyway. Nobody cares about any of that. Anyway.
It's a great grandchild for anybody that cares.
Sorry, guys. Anyway. So, thanks for coming back today, spending some time with us as we dive into the darkness of this week's episode. So, if you were with us last week, we were up in the vast, freezing silence of the Plumas National Forest, completely lost in the case of the Yuba County Five. A mystery so big and baffling because we simply don't know why those 5 men left their car and walked into the freezing night.
Because they stupid.
It was a case about the horror of the unknown. Well, get ready to brace yourselves, because this week we're leaving that chilling, wide open mystery behind, and we are pulling right into a suburban Florida driveway and going inside the house this week.
Nice.
We're
They got some
swapping,
nice houses down there.
we're swapping the unknown for the intimate and the inevitable. This week's horror isn't about who did it or why they ran. It's about the decades of slow burn rage that led one man to commit the unthinkable right there at the dinner table.
Oh, man.
We're going to explore what happens when the one person who belongs least at the holiday celebration is the one person who decides who gets to live and who dies. So now, let's go inside that home. So this story begins not with a bang, but with a feast. For the Sitton family and their extended relatives, November 26, 2009 started exactly as planned. 16 people gathered in a beautiful home in Jupiter, Florida, ready to share a meal, exchange stories, and listen to the children play. It was the kind of night filled with clinking silverware, laughter, and the smell of roasted turkey.
Yum.
Jupiter is a picture-perfect coastal town, known for its pristine beaches and affluent neighborhoods, a postcard setting that made the violence that erupted there seem even more surreal. It was a picture of domestic perfection. But inside that home, unbeknownst to most, was a man holding a grudge nurtured over 2 decades. A man who had brought a semi-automatic handgun to the holiday dinner.
He was going to make sure he gets a trick leg, wasn't he?
I guess. So stupid.
That's why you have me on here.
So by 10 p.m., the picture of perfection would shatter, becoming the scene of one of the most brutal actions of familial annihilation in modern Florida history. This is the case of the 2009 Thanksgiving Day murders. So the Jupiter home belonged to Jim and Muriel Sitton. At the center of their world was their 6-year-old daughter, Michaela Joy Sitton. Michaela was a vibrant, loving child who loved to sing and was full of infectious energy. She was the heartbeat of the family gathering.
Oh,
Also present were her aunt, Lisa Knight, who was 6 months pregnant, and her husband, Patrick Knight. Lisa and Patrick had already named their unborn son, and his name was Dominic Knight. Michaela's other aunt, Carla Merhige, I think is how you say it, but that could be wrong, was there. She was Lisa's twin sister and the person that our killer harbored the deepest resentment for. Alongside them was their brother, Paul Merhige. Paul and the twin sister's aunt, who was also the matriarch of the family, Raymond Joseph, who was 76 years old, was also present inside the home that night for Thanksgiving dinner. This terrible event on Thanksgiving Day in 2009 wasn't the first time violence had struck this family. Merhige's own aunt, Salwa Merhige Abrams, I believe that's how you say it, who was an opera singer, had committed a devastating murder-suicide in 1973, killing her ex-husband and 2 children before taking her own life.
Dang.
So this family was no stranger to tragedy. So the source of the simmering darkness was none other than 35-year-old Paul Michael Merhige. Paul was not a well-liked guest at this dinner. His presence was a point of tension. Quiet, socially awkward, and seemingly resentful, Paul had driven a deep wedge into the family with years of erratic and hostile behavior.
So in other words, he was a jerk.
Pretty much. He was an asshole. The family knew his instability was a threat, but they couldn't have comprehended the scale of the horror that he was planning. The day began innocently enough. There was dinner, laughter, and a piano sing-along. But Paul was an island of silence in a sea of celebration. He stayed for the meal, but not for the joy. He watched, he listened, and he waited. To Paul, the sounds of clinking silverware and laughter weren't a celebration at all. They were a cruel, living reminder of the life, success, and belonging he believed he was owed, and that his family had somehow conspired to deny him of. Yeah, he's
Too
one of
much
those.
ego.
Mhm. Every cheerful moment in that room was, in his mind, another justification for the violence that he had planned. His behavior was so odd and unsettling that earlier that afternoon, his own mother, Carol, had reportedly confessed to her daughter, Lisa, a dreadful premonition, whispering that she hoped Paul wouldn't, quote, come and kill us all tonight.
Dang.
Yeah. That chilling fear, voiced in a moment of private worry, tragically became a grim prophecy just hours later. The entire 3-hour period from the time Paul arrived until the moment he stood up was the prelude to premeditated mass murder. But to truly understand the violence of that night, we must pull back the curtain on the decades of psychological torment that Paul Merhige inflicted upon his own psyche and his family. His rage was not born in an instant, but festered over years. Paul was diagnosed with severe mental illnesses. Reports point towards a complex mix of oppressive compulsive disorder, no, obsessive compulsive behavior, and what was often described by family as severe paranoia and mood swings. The warning signs were copious and undeniable. Court records later revealed that police had been called to the Merhige family home at least 10 different times between 1994 and 2006 to deal with his, quote, extremely violent and aggressive acts and expressed threats of violence.
And they didn't arrest him?
He's a very violent guy.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, so I may have shot him before now.
Yeah. His mental health was so debilitating that he was declared, quote, legally disabled in 1996 and was committed to psychiatric facilities at least 3 separate times. This family was long aware of the threat that Paul posed. He had engaged in various self-harm and aggressive acts, including 2 documented suicide attempts by shooting himself in the chest. So one of his twin sisters, Carla, had even filed a restraining order against him in 2006, alleging that he had threatened to kill her and then kill himself. Though she later withdrew the request, the history was clear. Paul Merhige was a recognized immediate danger to his own family. His mental condition rendered him incapable of sustaining a career or functioning independently, leading to massive resentment. He reportedly blamed his sisters, particularly Carla, for his failures in life, which included giving up his goal of attending law school. So somehow it's his own it's his entire family's fault. He has nothing to do with it.
Okay.
Yeah. This cocktail of psychological instability and deep-seated personal failure fueled his murderous intent. The massacre was clearly not spontaneous. It was meticulously planned. In the weeks leading up to Thanksgiving, Paul took two deliberate chilling actions. First, he secured a significant amount of cash, withdrawing $12,000 from his bank account and then withdrawing smaller amounts from different ATMs. Secondly, and most crucially, he went to a gun store and legally purchased a .380 caliber automatic handgun, which he would later use to destroy his entire family. In fact, in the immediate weeks leading up to the massacre, Paul purchased a total of 4 firearms and a substantial amount of ammunition.
Dang.
Yeah. Crucially, despite his multiple state psychiatric commitments, these did not meet the federal threshold for a mental health probation, allowing him to pass the background check and legally acquire the weapons. He later hid this weapon in a discreet location in the Sutton home, ensuring that he would have access to it when the moment that he had been waiting for had finally arrived. So he hid the gun inside the home beforehand.
Talk about well planned out.
Mhm. Eventually, the long simmering hostility, which Paul had silently nourished for 3 hours, boiled over after the Thanksgiving feast. The family had moved from the dining room to the living room to relax. Paul became engaged in a minor, almost inconsequential argument with his sister Carla. The topic was irrelevant, but it was just the pretext that he needed. Paul abruptly stormed out of the main gathering. The other family members likely experienced a momentary sense of relief, assuming the difficult cousin had finally left the house or had just gone to cool off. This brief false calm created a deadly window of opportunity. So, it was just past 10 p.m. on Thanksgiving night when Paul made his move. He went to retrieve the legally registered handgun he had purchased and hidden. He then returned to the living area. Upon re-entering the room, he said a single horrifying sentence that became the signature of this entire tragedy. Quote, "I've been waiting 20 years for this."
Dang.
The violence was immediate, brutal, and calculated. Palmer Heesh committed the murders not in a fit of wild, screaming rage, but with a cold, terrifying calmness. He opened fire, shooting and killing his 76-year-old aunt, Raymond Joseph. He then moved quickly to his twin sisters, Carla and Lisa Knight, and he shot them both at close range. Forensic investigators later confirmed the execution-style nature of the attack, finding gunpowder soot on the entry wounds of the victims, which means that he was so close
Up close and personal.
that the gunshot left burn marks. Lisa, who was 6 months pregnant, died instantly. A fatality that later resulted in the charge of murder of an unborn child, her son, Dominic Knight.
See, I just can't with these people.
Patrick Knight, Lisa's husband, attempted to intervene or escape, not 100% sure which one, I seen both, but was shot and fell gravely wounded. He was the only person shot who would then go on to survive the initial attack.
God bless him.
In the ensuing panic, screaming guests desperately scrambled for any available exit. The depth of the family's anguish later led survivors like Patrick Knight and Michaela's parents, the Sitton, to file civil lawsuits against Paul's own parents, alleging they knew about their son's, quote, dangerous propensities and failed to prevent the massacre. Devastatingly, the Merheesh parents would later countersue the victims' families in civil court, demonstrating the complete bitter collapse of the entire extended. This act was seen by the survivors, including Jim Sitton, as ultimate betrayal, a final malicious act that tore away any hope for peace or reconciliation. It cemented the idea that Paul's parents prioritized protecting their assets over acknowledging the immense suffering their son had inflicted.
But they shouldn't be held accountable for what their son did.
But I could get it.
Oh, I get it, but they still shouldn't be held accountable because he was a grown man.
Right, he was.
And it was too methodically planned out.
Right. Which I get that, but I can see it on the other hand because he was considered mentally
And that's
disabled.
partially the state's fault because they
Right,
didn't
and
let him have the damn guns.
there's a lot of people that were responsible. Paul being most of all, of course, because he was his own person, he was an adult. The state, because federal guidelines are there's gonna be a lot of people that disagree. This is America, you have a right to bear arms, but there are some people who should not have access to them.
I agree.
Ergo our story today. He should have never been able to get access to guns.
Mm-mm.
If he had not of, would it have happened? It might still have, but
We
it'd have
don't
been a little
know
bit harder. And then again, at the same time, his parents are responsible in a way
because
because
they
he
should have
was
gotten him help a lot sooner.
right, exactly. He was deemed mentally disabled because his mental illnesses were so bad. And they just kinda, "Oh, well."
Shrugged it off.
Right, and then look what happened. So I can get why
Well, yeah.
they would
I
go and
can't figure out why they would turn around and sue the victim's family.
right, I don't get that.
I mean, it was
Like,
their son that did it.
you're just being an asshole. You're just
Right.
rubbing salt in the wound now.
Right.
Like "Oh, you're suing me, so I'm gonna sue you just because I can."
Exactly.
Just own up. You should have helped your son. Had you helped your son, like, not trying to blame, because they are a victim in a way too, because they lost family members, they lost their son. You know what I mean? So, I'm not trying to
Lost their daughters.
necessarily blame them, but in a sense, you kinda so now in the midst of the chaos, Paul had one final specific target. And we have a trigger warning at the very beginning for every single episode, but I'm gonna put another one in here for everyone because this is heartbreaking, and it just shows how much of a monster he really was. Paul went to the back part of the house, away from the living room to the bedrooms where the children had been tucked in for the night, and he found his 6-year-old cousin, Michaela Joy Sitton, and he did not hesitate. He shot Michaela 3 times in her bed,
Oh my
ensuring
god.
her death. Michaela's father, Jim Sitton, hearing the final shots, frantically tried to smash the hurricane-proof glass of her bedroom window, desperate to save her life, only to be stopped by the brutal reality that he was too late. Further forensic analysis revealed Paul first fired, stepped away, and then returned to fire a second shot to ensure the 6-year-old was dead.
Just a baby.
Yeah, for no reason. Like, I
Because he
don't
was an asshole.
but and that's the thing, there were other children in the house.
Why her?
Right. That's something that I cannot figure out. What about her at 6 years old
An innocent child.
made you feel that you needed to
To
do that? I don't understand that at all.
jealousy, maybe?
I don't maybe, I don't know, but, like, bro, you're in your 30s. Why the fuck are you jealous of a 6-year-old? Anyway, I digress. In total, 4 family members and 1 unborn child were killed, and 1 man was critically injured. Having now completed the annihilation he had plotted decades for, Paul simply got into his car and drove away. In the horrifying aftermath, the screams died down, were- and they were replaced by deafening, unnatural silence, the sound of an utterly broken holiday. The clatter of fallen serving dishes and the sickening smell of gunpowder were the only evidence left of their holiday celebration. Now, once news had broken about the murders, the idea that a mass murderer could just vanish so simply and completely, and during the holidays no less, haunted the entire country. The scene police the scene police arrived at was horrifying and chaotic, marking the beginning of a 36-day manhunt and a lifetime of pain for the survivors. The house of Jim and Muriel Sitton was now a site of unimaginable violence. Blood, overturned furniture, and shell casings mixed with holiday decorations. One man, Clifford Gabara, I think that's how you say it, sustained a non-fatal gunshot graze, adding a sixth casualty. Paul, in a final act of arrogance and twisted pride, had left his empty handgun shell casing, the murder weapon, and his car keys on the kitchen counter before fleeing the home. The Jupiter Police Department immediately issued a warrant for Paul's arrest, charging him with 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of attempted first-degree murder. The manhunt quickly escalated, involving the FBI and the U.S. Marshals.
Dang, they pulled out everybody.
Oh, yeah. To bring national attention to the case, John Walsh, host of America's Most Wanted, traveled to South Florida to film an extended segment with Jim and Muriel Sitton. Walsh, whose own son Adam was the same age as Michaela when he was killed, warned that Paul might strike again, stating, quote, "He tried to destroy this family on Thanksgiving and did not finish the job." So John Walsh warned he may come back to finish what he started. A $25,000 reward was quickly offered for information leading to his arrest. And this search, like I said, lasted for 36 agonizing days. For the survivors, the holiday season was replaced by constant, paralyzing dread. Jim Sitton later recounted that his family had to receive police protection and that he himself patrolled their property with a loaded shotgun, fearing that Paul would return to finish what he had started. The fugitive's face was plastered across billboards and national news, fueling public fear that the killer could be anywhere. When the police searched, the sole adult survivor of the shooting, Patrick Knight, who was Lisa's husband, fought for his life in the hospital. He had been so critically injured that doctors placed him in a medically induced coma. He remained in this coma for approximately 3 months. Now, his eventual survival was a hard-fought victory for the family, but his recovery was only the beginning of a lifetime of pain. He awoke to the crushing reality that his wife, unborn son, sister-in-law, and baby cousin, along with his aunt-in-law, had all been murdered. The family he made and chose were all gone. Now, the break in this case finally came on December 29th of 2009, nearly 5 weeks after the massacre. Palmer Hege was tracked down nearly 200 miles south of Jupiter, hiding in a motel room on Long Key in the Florida Keys. He had checked into the Edgewater Lodge under the assumed name John Baca. What kind of fucking name is that? Like John Smith or some shit. You know, like, a fuck idiot. Anyway, sorry. And he paid in cash in advance. Paul's attempt to disappear relied entirely on cash and anonymity. Using the vast distance of the Florida Keys, which is massive,
Yeah.
to escape the scrutiny of the mainland, because Florida Keys is an island in Florida, for those that don't know that. He took the extensive measures to disappear. He stockpiled canned food, insisted on cleaning his own room, and was found with other survival gear as well. Chillingly, court documents revealed that in the days after the killings, he had ordered an assisted suicide handbook and began loading up on supplies to kill himself, including helium, plastic bags, and tubing.
Yeah, but bet you the character didn't do the job.
Well, they had gotten to him before he could do anything. So he even covered his royal blue Toyota Camry with a car cover, so that way no one could see it. This indicated a planned long-term isolation that some believed was a prelude to suicide. However, his elaborate cover was blown when motel co-owner Paul Pfaff, I'm not sure, I think that's how you say it, recognized Paul in a television preview for America's Most Wanted, which had aired just a short time before on a Saturday night. The co-owners immediately checked the show's website and called the tip line. Marshals and deputies surrounded the two-story motel and burst into his second-floor room. Paul was arrested at the scene, subdued by a stun gun, and taken into custody, marking the show's 1,099th capture, and finally ending the 36-day fugitive nightmare. He was described by marshals as appearing unshaven and gaunt, yet utterly unfazed by his capture, only concerned with the betrayal of being found. As U.S. Marshals cornered him, Paul's final arrogant words were, quote, "How did you find me? You were only 200 miles away, bro. Like, did you think they were never going to find
You
you?"
were in the same freaking state.
Right. You were just on an island with tons of people.
Most people would have left the state.
Like, you're not as smart as you think you are. Now, with the killer finally detained, the focus shifted from the manhunt to the courtroom, where the search for justice began. After his capture, Paul Merhige was returned to face charges that prosecutors intended to pursue as a death penalty case.
Good for them.
I know, I'm on the fence when it comes to the death penalty.
But
If it was created,
two children.
right, if the death penalty was created for anyone, it was created for guys like Paul Merhige. Just saying. My opinion. However, this case never went to a full trial. The prosecution, concerned about the potential for a successful insanity defense, which, let's be real, he probably would have gotten that.
If his lawyer was smart.
He probably would have gotten it with his documented history. And then critically wanting to spare the sole adult survivor and star witness, Patrick Knight, from the trauma of testifying after his 3-month coma, had agreed to a plea deal. Which kind of pisses me off, but on the other hand,
I get
I
it.
get it.
You know, 'cause the poor guy's already traumatized for the rest of his life.
Right. He lost his wife. He lost his son. You know what I mean? So, like, I get it, but it's like, at the same time, it pisses me off. It's one of those catch-22 things.
Yeah.
So, on June 24th, 2011, Paul chose...
Oh, this wasn't that many years ago.
Nope. This is a modern one. So, on June 24th, 2011, Paul chose to enter a guilty plea to all charges, including the 4 counts of first-degree murder, attempted first-degree murder, and murder of an unborn child, in exchange for avoiding the death penalty. Palmer, he's accepted a sentence of 7 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole.
Well, at least you know we won't see the light of day. Yeah.
Right. He'll be in prison the rest of his life. So the sentencing hearing provided a crucial moment for the survivors. Numerous family members delivered powerful, tearful victim impact statements, directly confronting Merhige with the depth of the devastation he had caused, including Jim Sitton's heart-wrenching testimony about his daughter, Michaela. In fact, Michaela's mother, Muriel, voiced her outrage at the plea deal, but ultimately took solace in the finality of the sentence, stating, quote, "In the end, he has gotten death. He's gotten death in prison, and we know that in the end, he will not come out except in a box." Separately, the civil lawsuits filed by the survivors against Merhige resulted in a default judgment against him, affirming his full legal liability for the immense financial and emotional damages suffered. So he was also held financially responsible, even though you never see any of it. But that's not the point of it.
See, now, I don't know about Florida, but some prisons will make you work, and all the money you make goes towards that.
Yeah, some
It's
places
only a
do,
little
yeah.
bit at a time, but
Right. Which I don't... most likely it wasn't about the money. It was just about,
the principal involved.
you're not guilty simply because you took a plea deal. You're guilty because you did it.
Right.
And a civil suit shows that, which, I mean, we all knew that, but, you know. Anyway, for Paul's parents, Michael and Carol Merhige, the tragedy was absolute. They had lost all 3 of their children. their niece Michaela, and their sister. Merhesh was formally incarcerated into the Florida state prison system, ensuring he would never walk free again. But while he would never walk free again, the Sitton family's sentencing was lifelong. The true ongoing consequence of the Thanksgiving Day massacre lies within the survivors. One of the most prominent voices to emerge from the grief was Jim Sitton, Michaela's father. Jim and his wife channeled their overcoming loss into dedicated advocacy, focusing on two key areas: mental health intervention and firearm safety concerning individuals with known violent histories. Jim Sitton established the Michaela Joy Sitton Foundation, dedicating himself to ensuring that mental health threats are taken seriously by both families and the legal system. He often spoke publicly, emphasizing the failure of the system to intervene on behalf of a family that had not only known about the danger, but had expressed their fear hours before the attack took place. The crucial systematic failure here was the legal loophole that Paul Merhesh exploited. His psychiatric hospitalizations were not sufficient to prevent him from legally acquiring the murder weapon. His work sought to create better legal mechanisms for temporary quote unquote red flag laws or other protective measures that could legally disarm or mandate treatment for individuals like Paul, who pose a clear, immediate threat. Sitton's advocacy was the driving force behind the creation of Florida's Risk Protection Order, or RPO. This law is commonly known as the Red Flag Law, which was formally passed in 2018. This law directly addresses the loophole that Merhesh had exploited by allowing law enforcement to temporarily remove firearms from individuals who pose a significant danger to themselves or others without requiring a prior felony conviction. His efforts serve as a direct, painful legacy of a tragedy that should have been prevented. The Merhesh family massacre is a horrific example of familial annihilation, a crime often driven by the killer's deep feeling of failure and perceived humiliation by the very people they are meant to love. This was not a crime of passion, but instead a calculated, long-awaited settling of scores enacted on the most sacred day of family togetherness. This case serves as a dark cautionary tale about the devastating consequences when known severe mental illness, resentment, and access to firearms intersect at the holiday table. The Jupiter community and their surviving family will never celebrate Thanksgiving without remembering the day joy was extinguished by a calculated act of rage. The memory of Raymond, Carla, Lisa, and little Michaela lives on, not just as victims, but as symbols of the deep, enduring cost of unchecked mental illness and systematic failure. Now, this story is difficult, and Paul Merhesh may be locked away, serving his 7 consecutive life sentences, but the work of Jim Sitton and the Michaela Joy Sitton Foundation continues, pushing for change to ensure that no other family has to endure this kind of preventable horror. So now, before we close out today, I want to shine a light on a foundation that has been keeping the spirit of little Michaela alive through music. The foundation's vital work is now carried out by the Grace Notes Music Foundation, and its core mission is the Michaela Joy Sitton Music Scholarship.
That's cool.
So the goal is to bring the incredible academic, cultural, and emotional benefits of music education to children who might not otherwise have the chance.
That's cool.
So the Michaela Joy Sitton Music Scholarships provide private music lessons for children in Palm Beach County, Florida, based on financial needs. If this mission resonates with you, you can visit that website where you can make a direct donation. So that way you can help create new musicians and honor Michaela's memory by supporting her foundation. That website will be linked in the episode description so you can find it easy. So we know these stories are difficult to listen to, and we truly appreciate you spending your time with us for this one today. If you found this episode informative and compelling, consider giving us a 5-star rating and leaving a review wherever you're listening now. It only takes a minute, and it helps us reach more listeners interested in these deep dive case analysis, and it also tells us you like them, so that way we can bring you more. Now, before we sign off, don't forget to join us next Monday, which kicks off our December episodes.
Woohoo!
And we're going to dive into a chilling unsolved holiday mystery. This case begins.
Don't be ruining Christmas for me. You know it's my favorite holiday.
This case begins when a seemingly festive discovery, a fully decorated Christmas tree found in a deserted place, reveals a dark and sinister secret. It marks the beginning of a cold case that baffled detectives for decades, focusing on identity, disappearance, and a discovery that forever changed a community. Yep. So if you haven't already, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss these new episodes. You can connect with us and other listeners on our Facebook page. That link is in the episode description as always. We love hearing from you, so reach out to us on our socials, through our email, all of those places. If you have your own personal listener tales, true crime, case suggestion, anything like that, you can send those to us at any of those places. And that's it. That's our Thanksgiving Day massacre.
That's a shame.
Mm-hmm.
That's so heartbreaking.
Yep. I think it was a TV show. I can't remember which one that I watched, and that's how I seen this one.
Our forensic files.
That might have been it. It was something. It was something like Forensic Files. I just can't remember the exact show. There's so many out there. And the survivor's guilt that Patrick Knight has had to live with.
Yeah, he's a basket case. I know I would be.
Oh, yeah. That's for sure. I don't know if I could continue on. Yep.
I just
The next one's not. It's more of who rather than what. Who and why rather than what. Yep. That's all I got. You got anything else?
don't ruin holidays. I'm too old to change my ways.
All right. Guys, thank you for joining us today. I know this one was difficult, but necessary for this one. We carry stories like this with us so that way we can learn from them and be able to tell when something isn't right. So listen to your gut, follow your instincts, pick up on those cues, check in with your friends, your family.
Lock them up. Hide your guns.
If you got that one crazy family member,
Hide your guns.
don't bring them to the holiday dinner. It's not funny. That's awful. I shouldn't say that. I'm
That's
sorry.
why your mom and your aunt live down where they live.
You're so you're so stupid.
I'm just kidding. I love my
Anyway.
children.
Okay, I shouldn't have said that. That's awful. Anyway, okay. So until next time, be safe. Look out for those red flags in your own life. Trust your instincts, and always remember to
Watch out for monsters.
and don't kill people. Bye, y'all.
Bye, y'all.